Hello, everyone. It's Jane here again. Everything's happening pretty fast right now. Can you believe I'm nearly free again? I know I'm not like 100% off the hook, but still, after being abandoned for weeks, the end is finally in sight. As soon as Mary and I left the prison, we went to her department where she works as a criminal investigator. We had to alert everyone about the pending assassination against our mayor. I felt the stern and hostile looks of Mary's coworkers when we arrived. They were observing me from head to toe, clearly unimpressed. Apparently, she had told them a lot about me and my case, so naturally, they thought I was a loony. She probably also told them that I saved her life, but hey, I know plenty of hard-headed people. We revisited a few just last episode, remember? Anyway, I felt deeply uncomfortable standing there under their critical gaze. Mary, however, was unfazed and focused on her goal. She calmly walked me to her office, then gestured for me to sit. She picked up her phone and began to dial. I vaguely knew that her plan consisted of warning people who were in charge of the mayor's security. According to her words, I understand that someone on the other end of the line didn't want to listen to the words of a random cop drone. Mary got mad, though she didn't let it show through her voice, but I could see her brow furrowing. She was patiently trying to convince the governor's assistants that he was in danger, though they didn't really want to hear her out. Oh, I know this feeling all too well. Trying to persuade those who don't want to listen, the rising anger screaming into a void, desperately trying to be heard. I started staring into space, sinking into my depression when I was snapped back to reality by the sound of Mary angrily hanging up and sinking into her chair. She was thinking deeply about something. I stared at her, trying to catch up with her thoughts and intentions. But her eyes were staring blindedly at the wall as if she got lost inside of her own mind. After several minutes, Mary put herself together. She looked at me. "How about being a little naughty?" I didn't quite understand, but I was tempted. Perhaps? What do you mean? You'll see soon. Mary grabbed my hand and walked me out of the office. She put me in the middle of her department. "Everyone, listen to me. This girl knows that today something awful is going to happen. She knows that our mayor will be killed." Somebody laughed. "There's nothing funny here. This little girl saved my life. It was she who wanted to save her uncle, her friend, and also people from the mall. That's why she's here. But do you know why those things happened anyway? Because no one believed her. Not you, not me, no one. And now it's going to happen again. But you won't even take a chance to listen for the sake of your own pride. Are you so fragile that you'd be willing to risk someone else losing their life?" Everyone looked at her, considering her words carefully. Do we all risk our reputation, our career, or someone's life? All on the words of a little girl and this woman? These questions were in their eyes. There was nothing more we could say. They had to choose what they were going to do next. "Mary, what in the hell are you talking about? Are you trying to tell us that you trust some child because of nothing more than a lucky guess?" asked one of her coworkers. "She didn't guess. She knew for certain in advance. She has prophetic dreams," said Mary. "So, what are you proposing?" asked her colleague again. "Please do try to understand that I don't want to risk his life because only he can maintain peace and happiness in our city. I want to help him and save him, and to do this, I need you to be at the right place at the right time, all wearing your bulletproof vests." Her co-workers looked at one another. "What are you up to?" kept asking her colleague, but she just pointed at her office. After that, they left me alone and gathered in her office, planning their actions. About an hour later, everything was ready. All the policemen gathered in one place, wearing informal clothes. They started to put their plan into action. Somehow, though, that plan involved me, so they took me along with them. About another hour goes by and we finally arrive at the Square of Fame. Before that, Mary got all of the necessary information about the time of the governor's arrival and its purpose. Apparently, he was going to attend the opening ceremony of a long-awaited new monument. I had seen it in my dream, too, but it was mostly out of my field of vision, so I didn't remember it so well. Now I understand why there were so many people outside. No one would want to miss such an opportunity as getting to witness the opening ceremony of a new memorial. All of the investigators discreetly moved around the square. Now all they have to do is wait. They left me at a distance where I could observe the operation and say when the pieces of my dream would start to combine, waiting for the first domino to fall and the event would be triggered. I carefully watched all the people, perhaps trying to spot the culprit. The mayor and his guards appeared at about 1:05 p.m. He was friendly, smiling, and sincere. He greeted all the citizens who gathered around the memorial. Then he started to approach the stand which was set out for him in the middle of the square. That was the moment when my dream began to slowly come true. I informed Mary through a walkie-talkie, and she spread it further. With that, everyone began to follow the established plan of action. One of the cops suddenly jumped out of the crowd and grabbed the mayor. After that, he covered the governor with his body. The investigators surrounded them in a tight circle. His guards were confused. People started to walk away to avoid such an incident, and suddenly a shot was fired. The bullet hit the investigator who was covering the mayor. Fortunately, the man was still standing. It seemed he was only grazed. The bulletproof vest, I remembered. The team thought through every detail to save everyone and keep themselves safe as well. I breathed a sigh of relief. After the first shot, people began to panic and run away. The mayor's guards put themselves together and started to surround their charge and look around. The other investigators also kept surrounding him in a protective circle. At first, he was resisting, but after the shot rang out, he kept quiet and was trying to hide behind their backs. Then there was another shot, and it hit Mary. She fell, holding her wounded hand, her cries of pain ringing in my ears. I couldn't stay standing aside. I ran to her. That moment, the killer, who was holding a rifle, appeared from behind a tree and started to run away. The guards noticed and chased after him. For now, all seemed relatively calm. The investigators carefully walked the mayor to his car. Lower-ranked security for the event tried to calm down the citizens and disperse the crowd. Several police cars and ambulances arrived on the scene shortly thereafter. The doctors put Mary on a stretcher. She told me it wasn't anything serious, just a scratch. But I saw how painful it was. She's so brave. She looked so composed even after all that. After the first gut reaction of being hit that I heard earlier, she refused to show any other signs that she was in any kind of pain. I said that I was going to follow my friend to the hospital. Besides, my mother was also in that very same hospital, so they let me stay in the car with Mary. When we finally arrived at the hospital, I visited my mother first. She was sound asleep when I walked in. Carefully, I sat near her and took hold of her hand. She felt it and opened her eyes. "Jane?" she asked. I nodded and smiled. "But what are you doing here?" she began, but I stopped her. "Everything's fine, Mom. Don't worry. I didn't run away from jail, if that's what you're thinking. And all of the things I told you before are true. You'll see soon. Just don't worry and don't scream at me, please." My mom's eyes were full of tears. She patted my hand and smiled. All right, my dear." Then she pointed at the TV that was hanging on the wall of her hospital room. I turned it on for her. At that moment, the room sank into screams and gunshots. Today's incident with our mayor was all over the news. The reporters talked about the local investigators that saved the mayor while risking their own lives. However, the most amazing thing was that they also talked about me. At that moment, my mother opened her eyes widely and looked at me. "What? Is it true? You really can see the future and prevented whatever that was?" she had asked. "Yeah, it is true, but I can't do anything on my own. But don't worry, Mom. Someone finally believes me. Someone finally supported me. Now look at the outcome. I'm finally doing some good." That moment, the reporters came into the room. We were astonished and didn't quite know what to do, or even if they were allowed in here. They began to ask me questions about my abilities, opportunities, and reasons why I have such dreams. I just shrugged and asked them to please leave us alone. Unfortunately, that didn't work. But you'll never guess what happened next. Suddenly, the mayor himself appeared. He came to thank me for his rescue personally. It was amazing. I never in my life imagined being in the same room with him, let alone being heralded as responsible for saving his life. He loudly announced that I am a true local hero, a miracle even. He said that if I'm willing, he will give me support and the power to help our city become better, stronger, and safer. I cried, but for the first time in a long while, they were tears of happiness and relief. Then he shook my hand and kissed my fingers. He even gave me a medal for bravery, but I didn't care. I would be lying if I said I wasn't enjoying my sudden fame. But I have Mary to thank for every good thing that has happened to me since this whole thing started. I rushed through the crowd of the reporters and photographers to the hospital room of my favorite investigator. I ran into Mary's room and saw her, alive and smiling. Immediately I hugged her and I said nothing for a long while, but I knew she understood everything. My cheeks began to hurt from smiling too much. "Thank you, Mary."